and welcome back to another Stand Side with Cosmetics Business here live in Paris for the 2024 edition of In Cosmetics Global. Today I'm really excited to be joined by Alejandro Franco, who is a co-founder of Kaffe Bueno. Alejandro, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for stopping by.
And we're really looking forward to taking a deep dive into exactly what it is you're showcasing here. So Alejandro, maybe you can give us a bit of an overview of Kaffe Bueno then in that case, maybe talk us through some of your products, the company as a whole. What is it you guys do exactly?
Sure. Well, Kaffe Bueno is a Danish bioscience company upcycling coffee byproducts into active and functional ingredients for personal care, but also human and animal nutrition, as well as advanced materials for agriculture.
Fantastic. So you've taken all of that experience from being a Colombian native, all of those natural resources, taking it over to Denmark, creating a bioscience company, and then offering the beauty and cosmetics industry you're offering here today.
Well, yeah, and the whole point of it is taking advantage of a resource that has been considered a waste for many years.
Yeah.
When you make a cup of coffee, you're using less than 1% of what is inside coffee. The rest is intact in the spent coffee grounds, and those are disposed as waste.
Yes.
And when they decompose in a landfill or incinerated for energy production, they release a lot of methane, which is a lot worse for the environment than CO2. So when we realized this, we thought, well, we need to do something about it. And on that journey, we found all the health-promoting compounds inside coffee, and we figured out a way to use technology to sustainably break down coffee into all of the molecules and then use them in different industries.
Fantastic. And how did that journey start? Did you then approach different cafes or large coffee houses initially to source those coffee granules?
Yeah, I mean, initially it was cafes, but then we realized that was not going to make sense because of traceability and quality, a lot of different things. So we
too many variables, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So we moved to industrial partners.
Yeah.
So today our suppliers are industrial producers of instant coffee and cold brew, for example.
Yeah.
One of our investors is the largest coffee company in the Nordics.
Fantastic, excellent. You mentioned something earlier about upcycling, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the concept of upcycling coffee, and particularly the byproducts, but more specifically, how Kaffe Bueno leverages this for cosmetic ingredients specifically.
Cool. Well, I think the upcycling concept has been evolving throughout the last maybe 10 years.
Sure.
5 years in particular. Initially, what everybody thought upcycling was just recycling, but it's very different. And it started when a brand started using coffee grounds for scrubs.
Yes.
That, I would say, kind of started something, but that was not enough. So our definition of upcycling is taking a byproduct, breaking it down into all of its building blocks, and then using those building blocks to create products of higher value.
So repurposing byproducts.
So for example, instead of taking coffee grounds and putting them in a coffee scrub, what we do is that we extract the oil, for example, different biopolymers, fibers, sugars, antioxidants, all of which are health-promoting compounds that can help solve problems for the industry, particularly in this stage that the industry is where they want to transition to natural. But there's a lot of problems transitioning to natural.
And also, it's not just resourceful, but of course, consumers, it makes them feel good that they are actually contributing towards a more a healthier economy, upcycling, recycling, as you said, but upcycling something different. So there is a feel-good factor from the consumer end that actually they are purchasing a beauty product that has actually been upcycled.
Yeah, exactly. It helps them. Like their purchasing decisions basically align with their values. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the type of brand and consumer that you're aiming us towards.
Exactly. I mean, eventually, this should be more the standard rather than a niche.
Yeah.
Because right now, the mass market is basically petrochemicals and synthetics.
Yeah.
But once this reaches an economy of scale, unit economics will be able to be competitive with mass market alternatives.
Exactly, and you mentioned that upcycling has only really been a trigger word really for the last 10 years, but more so in the last 5 years itself. So how does Kaffe Bueno differentiate itself from other companies that upcycle? What is that USP behind the business?
Yeah, so I mean when we started 8 years ago, and we were talking about upcycling, nobody even knew the word,
Yeah.
or very few people. And now that everybody is using it, it has resulted in a skepticism by consumers and by
Yeah.
brands in regards to, okay, are you actually upcycling?
Yeah.
How can you demonstrate that? And if you are upcycling, how sustainable are you truly?
Yeah.
So we have already taken a step beyond just being the first, because now that is not enough. What we are doing now is doing a lot of LCAs, life cycle assessment.
Okay.
So evaluating our whole supply chain on a consistent basis so that we have a full overview of the emissions per kilo of our ingredients.
Interesting.
And we can supply that to all the manufacturers. So with new EU regulations coming into place this year, next year, where most companies need to report on their emissions.
Yeah.
Usually scope 3 emissions, where transport and suppliers, they get those emissions from them, which is a big variable that they cannot control.
Yeah.
Manufacturers rely on the transparency of their suppliers.
Yeah.
So in short, basically it's our ability to quantify and measure everything consistently from an emissions perspective.
Yeah. And that transparency is a huge part as well. So you know, I think that is a really important part that you mentioned, that transparency between that entire supply chain from the start to the finish as well.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're able to access that data, share that data with your suppliers as well. And I think that's a really important point to make there as well. So Alejandro, maybe you can walk us through the portfolio then in that case.
Sure. So first we started with the oil, and we have different versions of the oil. It's an active oil, similar to argan oil.
Yeah.
So it's particularly good for skin and hair.
Yeah.
We have done comparative efficacy studies versus argan oil, and we have demonstrated that it performs on par.
Interesting.
And our LCAs demonstrate that our oils, per kilo of oil that we produce, they emit 4 to 6 times less emissions than 1 kilo of argan oil.
Interesting. And is argan oil typically more expensive as well?
Yes, now we can be a lot more competitive with that because many different reasons. Argan oil relies a lot on availability and harvest, and you know, it's coming all from Morocco. So when shipping costs fluctuate, also it is highly affected by that. Our idea is to have a whole network of biorefineries around the world where we source coffee locally. Going back to the portfolio, then we have a surfactant that we're launching in cosmetics, so today. Basically, and we registered a new INCI name, potassium coffeate.
Okay.
So it's aiming to play in that emerging sub-segment of alternative surfactants to SLS.
Yeah.
So the industry wants to move away from SLS, so now there's a whole sub-segment there trying to fill in the gaps.
Sure.
This is where we're positioning it as an anionic surfactant.
Fantastic. So it's offering these beauty brands a fantastic opportunity to really capitalize on that existing gap in the market, which you guys have spotted and now filled.
That's our mentality when developing an ingredient. It's not about what we can do with coffee, but it's like, what is the problem in the market and what can we do to help solve it? Then from the surfactant, we jump to an exfoliant that's, let's say, pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But from there, we also use it as a feedstock to continue breaking it down into smaller molecules. So we have a patent pending biopolymer.
Interesting.
For, you know, it has different applications. So the high molecular weight is for BB creams, foundations, tinted moisturizers, bronzers.
Yeah.
Serving 3 purposes: anti-aging, active, SPF boosting, and color. Then the other version of that is for scalp, and I can go into technical details if you want, but it's for scalp and hair for different things.
And the scalp is all, often missed out when we're talking about hair care, because often, with hair care, we're concentrating just on the actual hair itself, but the scalp is often a forgotten component when you're looking at hair care from a holistic sense. So you have solutions for scalp care as well.
Now with the trend of hair skinification, now everything is more focused on scalp.
Yeah.
So it's only natural that you focus on the scalp if you want to improve the hair.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's the road to the hair kind of thing.
Exactly.
It's a base, absolutely.
Exactly.
Cool. So Alejandro, maybe you can tell us a bit more about Caffe and the future of that within Kaffe Bueno's business.
Yeah, so Caffeige is a multifunctional active biopolymer, and it reflects our vision for the industry since as the formulations are getting cleaner and shorter.
Yeah.
Consumers are also expecting every inky to reflect the naturality. So what we aim to do with this type of ingredients is to fulfill a lot of the expectations of a formulation
Right.
with one ingredient rather than the formulator having to bring in a bunch of ingredients.
Yeah.
So in this case is the activity for anti-aging and hydration and hyperpigmentation, also SPF boosting and color. So you can check a lot of boxes of the formulation.
It's like a one-stop shop, essentially.
Yeah, of course you need a little bit more in the formulation, but yeah.
In essence, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That sounds really interesting.
The one-stop shop concept is actually something we're working on. That's why now we're expanding our portfolio. We used to be very focused on actives, but now we're also focusing on functionals.
And I guess that would stem from your customers asking you where, telling you where the demands are as well, so that inspires you to innovate and spot those gaps and ultimately provide those solutions as well.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So it's a business which is clearly very reactive to the markets and right at the forefront of trends and technologies as well.
Yeah, we're something I'm proud of our team is that we're very agile.
Yes.
We don't get emotionally attached to products, and if they don't work out, if they solve a need in the market, which is always the purpose, then we stick to that and develop on it.
And of course, that's one of the benefits of working with a smaller supplier and manufacturer is the fact that you are able to move quickly, you are able to respond quickly, be agile, and also be flexible as well, which I think beauty brands in particular value.
Yeah. Especially when the industry, everything takes so long.
Yeah.
So we try to not be a bottleneck in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Be an asset as opposed to a hindrance there. Fantastic.
Exactly.
So, Alejandro, you mentioned a bit earlier about the new surfactant that you're launching. Maybe we could talk a bit more about that, but more specifically, how that aligns with Kaffe Bueno's vision for the future.
Sure. I mean, in a formulation, the actives are the minimal part of the formulation, whereas the surfactants, emollients, emulsifiers, rheology modifiers, those are the ones that are taking most of the concentration.
Yeah.
So if we truly want to have an impact, we need to focus on the majority rather than on the minority.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of challenges in the surfactant, emulsifier, emollient world in terms of replacing existing questionable ingredients with more sustainable alternatives. Usually because the sustainable or natural ones, they are unstable or they underperform or there's a batch-to-batch quality and reliability. So we're focusing on making solutions that are natural, upcycled, but that they cover all the gaps. And I think that is the only way that not only we can grow as a company, but that we can truly provide any value to the industry on a global scale.
And I think adding value is a key word there. You're not just reinventing the wheel. It's not just another version of much the same. You've spotted a gap. You've added value, and now the next step is just really sort of communicating out to the industry to say you're here with a fantastic solution and product, and here's the value and the benefits.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. And Alejandro, with that being said, does this mean that you're the only business in the sector upcycling coffee and offering these solutions?
Currently, we're no longer the only ones. We were the first, and that gave us a unique position in the market. Because we have been doing this for 8 years and we discovered things that were never discovered before.
Yeah.
So we had the chance to patent our discoveries, particularly on how to use the compounds in coffee, because anybody at the end of the day will figure out how we do what we do.
Yep.
The key point is defending our position in the market.
Yeah.
So by patenting the applications of our compounds in the applications that we are interested in, then we can protect ourselves. But at the same time, it's important that other type of companies or other companies inspired by Kaffe Bueno are emerging, because first, that only means that there is demand for our solution.
Absolutely.
And second, the more we are, the more impact that we can have.
And there's other companies as well, communicating the benefits of upcycling coffee as well. So sometimes if you're the only business, that's great, but you're also by yourself, sort of
Convincing a lot of people.
convincing other people, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have these other companies, whilst on the surface they may seem like a competitor, actually what they're doing is communicating the value and the benefits to be involved in a business like yours.
Exactly, and in the first couple of years, it was a lot about convincing and educating people in the industry that coffee can be more than just a scrub or caffeine. And still, a lot of the work is that. It's not just caffeine, it's not just scrubs. There's a lot of good things in coffee.
Yeah.
The more we are talking about it, the more people become aware and the less we have to do.
Absolutely, that sounds like a good plan to me. And maybe you can share us then in that case the good news from yesterday then in that case, following In Cosmetics awards.
Yeah, it was a nice surprise that we won the Rising Star Award.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Feels very nice, especially like 6 years ago we were here in our first In Cosmetics, walking around with our little bottle of coffee oil in the pockets.
And here you are exhibiting, winning awards.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Some journey, isn't it? Absolutely, fantastic. And I think with all that being said, with the business expanding and growing and innovating, with introducing new use of factors, winning awards, what does the future hold for Kaffe Bueno? Where do you see the future?
Eventful future.
Yeah.
We are developing a lot more ingredients for the personal care industry, also for different industries, health-oriented applications always.
Yeah.
We are also in the process of scaling up. We built the world's first coffee biorefinery, and we inaugurated it 6 months ago. Now we're in the commissioning phase, and that allows us to scale up to process about 1,000 tons annually.
Wow.
3-4 years from now, we should be building another factory, and from there
so
we can.
You definitely should be on a watch list going forwards, and certainly on a watch list for In Cosmetics 2025 as well in Amsterdam.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, look, listen, Alejandro, that was an absolute pleasure. Really interesting
so
to learn more about your business. And for everyone watching and listening in your offices and at home, thank you so much for dialing into this episode of Ink Standside with Cosmetics Business with Alejandro here at Kaffe Bueno. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.